Welcome to Doing the Most, the series where we talk about the misadventures of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, execution strategist and serial entrepreneur. This series is here to get real about what entrepreneurial life truly looks like. We are driven, persistent, hardworking, ambitious. We are human, and these are our stories. Welcome back to Doing the Most, the misadventures of entrepreneurship. This week, I have a very special guest, Madison Jaye, and we're going to be talking all about being a spiritually oriented entrepreneur and creative and doer. But before I get too deep into that, Madison, could you just introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, guys. So I am Madison Jaye. I am an international spiritual journalist and a 10-time award-winning media personality. So there's 3 divisions of my brand. There is me, Madison Jaye, speaker, podcaster. It's always weird talking about yourself. I do a lot of spiritual work, and I also do a lot of different work in media. I interview people for a living. I think that's a good way to put it.
Nice. And you see how she's saying this, that's like one thing I want to highlight right off the bat. People that do interviews for a living still get nervous while they're being interviewed. So yes. A lot of folks, they're like, oh, I need to be perfect. I'm the person that needs to do this thing, so I have to do it perfectly, and I have to just be super confident. You can still be nervous. I'm pretty sure every time Beyonce hits the stage, she's like, Wusa, I need to take a deep breath. Right. About to go out there. So
it's like that 5 minutes before the actual performance or the interview or whatever you're doing, you get extremely nervous, and then something else kind of like takes over you, I want to say. Yeah.
Yep, it's that I can do it, and that GSD, get shit done attitude that definitely takes over. Like, I know I got this. So, like the little angel devil cartoons that we used to see, where it's like one is saying, oh, got this, you're not confident, and the other part is like, oh, you got this, you're amazing. So it's like that strength just comes in, and it's like, you're scared, but guess what? We gonna do it anyways.
Right. Do it scared. Oh, that's a good quote. Put that on a t-shirt.
Definitely. So I wanted to just jump into this conversation, right? You said you're a spiritual journalist. What does that even mean? Do you write about God? Do you write about crystals? Like, what does that even mean? Can you break that down for the audience?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of like a very interesting lane within itself. So spiritual journalism, I basically, by the grace of God, I travel all over the world, and I study culture and religions for a living. And I also interview, your favorite artists or your favorite business professionals about their spiritual gifts. And I one thing that I've learned to kind of navigate throughout this year is showing people the different avenues there are to spiritual journalism, because there's not just one. So I've been dropping, I've been dropping thesis this year. I've been doing it for quite some time now, but this year when I dropped my thesis, what I decided to do was drop them in 3 parts. So the first part that I'm dropping them in is written, and then there's audio, which I usually use as podcast episodes, and then there's visuals. So I'm kind of showing people there's actually different lanes for spiritual journalism. You don't have to necessarily just do one. You can do more than one. You can do one, and you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Because I know we live in a very, very, very visual society now, especially with social media. So I like to show people, like, you don't, like, me personally, when I'm not in Madison Jaye mode, I don't like to be seen. So writing it down, or even, I started out in radio in the New York market, but, talking about it without having the camera in my face is very easy for me. But, you got to get accustomed to, I guess, the digital age, and people want to see the personality now. So that's interesting. And it was always easier for me to do interviews when I was just interviewing people about, their projects they have going on or stuff like that. But now that I'm interviewing people and my career has kind of like shifted more into spirituality publicly, it's a little bit more challenging when I'm interviewing people about spirituality, because a lot of the work that I've been doing for years, as far as like spiritual services, has always been very private. But to talk about it publicly and to get people to talk about it publicly, it's a new adventure, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and how do you make people feel comfortable about talking about it? Because like you said, it's difficult to talk about it publicly, and a lot of people might just not want to bring it up because there's so many different religions, spiritualities. Like there's so much depth and so much variety when it comes to spirituality that some people don't even just understand it, or just feel, it's even worse than politics. Like, I'm not going to bring up politics, but I'm definitely not going to bring up spirituality. So how do you combat that with individuals when you talk to them?
Yeah, so that's the thing, because okay, so there's three sides of my brand. There's always been Madison Jaye, the media personality, interviewing. I tell people all the time, when it comes to curating a lane to interview in, I could do about just any interview known to man, because I'm trained in that area. Then there's Madison Jaye, that comes along with the blog, that comes with the podcast, all of that fun media, interviewing people. That's that. Then there's the media services side, where I do the digital strategist, where I started out with like Hot 97 and WBLS. Right now, IHOP is one of my clients. McDonald's is a past client, where I, either curate events, press, or I do digital strategy for these companies. And then there's the other side of my brand, where I offer spiritual services very privately. So a lot of the people that I'll talk about publicly, I'll interview them, but there's a lot more people that I work with for spiritual services. So I always ask people, are you comfortable with me sharing this? Like if I shared it in a tweet or something like that, because I actually get way more engagement in my inbox, of course, because of the work that I do, than I do publicly. So I ask them if they're okay with it. And one thing that I do is, before I start the interview, I always, especially since I know it's going into the lane of spirituality, I always ask them, is there something you do not want me to talk about? Because if you don't want me to talk about it, I'll make sure we're not discussing it. And most times people, especially since I have these really close relationships, they're like, I'm an open book, Maddie. For you, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, all right, 2 cups of you, but let's do this,
Definitely. And it's great that you've been able to build those type of relationships, because again, we know modern day people are just like so tiptoe about certain topics. They don't want to have certain conversations because, again, everyone's offended because of everything. Oh, you said this doesn't work, or this is that, or this is, everyone is offended by everything. So it's really good that
it's a sensitive ass society now. And you know what the crazy part is? I'm happy you brought this up, because lately I've been way more public about my spirituality and spiritual services. And I've been attacked on every social media outlet known to man, whether it's my comments. I'm used to the comments, and I'm good with people talking about my appearance. Like, that does not faze me. The two things why I'm so private, the two things that actually bother me is when people talk about the people I love, and then when people talk about my work, and not necessarily talk about my work, but because I'm good with feedback. But when you talk about my work and you haven't done, your research, you haven't looked up my stuff, that's when it bothers me. Like if you come to me like 2 years ago, season 2 of my podcast, someone actually threw coffee in my face because they did not like what I was talking about as far as spiritual content goes. And you know what? I actually, looking now today, I actually respect that, because when they came to me, they started like saying facts about my show that they didn't like. Today, people just don't like you because you're offering a service publicly or because of a tweet. Like, I'll have so much more respect for people when they do that, but that's neither here or there. But yes, we do live in a very a sensitive society, so it's been a little challenging, but I like challenges.
Yes, I can hear the fight in your voice. Wow, Madison. So, you've had a pretty interesting journey so far. And, we were discussing before this interview, your craziest entrepreneurial adventure, and someone throwing coffee sounds a little crazy to me. But is there any other adventures you want to share with the audience that was like, wow, I cannot believe that just happened right now?
Yeah, probably like every day in life. Okay, I want to give one that is going to help people, like in a big way. I don't like to just share. Okay, I got one. Okay, so I talk about this one on social media, but I've never kind of like said it audio style, so it's going to be kind of cool. So the first time I did my first international speaking engagement was actually, it was in London. Well, it was supposed to be in London, but it ended up, my first engagement ended up being in the Ukraine, and then my second ended up being in London, and my third ended up being in Paris, right? Wow. And it's all happened in the same trip. Yeah, so it was wild. So what happened? So one of my brothers from overseas, shout out to him, he said, look, Mad, I'm going to let you, let me do the voice. I'm going to let you speak at my anniversary event. It's a 3-year anniversary. If you can make it to London, because they didn't have the funds just yet. So you know how it is when you're building with people. Mm-hmm. If you can make it to London, then you can speak. So they booked London University, and they wanted a big speaker. And so they were like, it's in front of 350 people. There was no way that I was going to miss this opportunity. And they booked the venue last second, I remember. I literally had a weekend to come up with the funds. So everything in me was like, no, bro, this is happening. Like, it already happened. I'm just waiting to live it, right? So I hustled. When I say I hustled, like tunnel vision. Like, it took me a while to rebuild that energy for like that type of manifestation on that level. So I ended up getting the money together in 2.5 days. But when I brought the ticket, the cheapest flight that I could get, it made a pit stop in the Ukraine, and it was a 19-hour layover. And then on the way back, I had to leave from Paris, which was fine because my sister, Ashley, she lives in Paris too. And she was just like, she lives in Paris and in London. So she was like, oh, I'll just drive you. We'll just take the boat over. We'll drive to the end of London and we'll catch the boat over to Paris. And I'm like, all right, cool, bet, let's do that. So yeah, I be wilding. And so I got the money together, but after I booked the flight, and you know how expensive last second flights are. So after I booked the flight, there was like $100 and maybe like $72 in my bank account. And I'm like, oh, I am a wild girl. Hello. So I was like, all right, cool, bet. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a hotel that's pay as you go when you pay when you get there. Cause I was waiting for one client's payment to process. I'm like, I'm gonna be broke for a few days, but I'm fucking going, fuck it. And so, I booked a hotel that was pay when you get there when I was in London. Cause this was actually my first time overseas. And I was like, don't get me wrong. Those my brothers, love them, but I don't know. I'm gonna get my own hotel room. You feel me? And so I put pay as you go as you get when you for the hotel. So I ended up, I was like, yo, I'm gonna be in the Ukraine for 19 hours. What am I gonna do? I can't afford to get a hotel. What am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look at different schools. Maybe someone will let me speak. I don't know. And they have good hummus. I love hummus, by the way. It's amazing. So I was like, okay, cool. So I started, and they speak another language over there. So I started, okay, translator, started sending out my resume. And I was going into Kniv. So I was like, okay, cool. I reached out to maybe like 40 different schools. And so no one got back to me. But as soon as I was about to get on a plane to go, one school got back to me, said, hey, we have a translator. We would love for you to come to speak in Kniv. It was a high school. We would love to hear you come and speak. We love what you're doing in America, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, crap. I just got to speak and dig into Ukraine. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep this to myself. I kept it to myself, got on a plane, went to the Ukraine, got some banging hummus. Mind you, there's only $172 in my bank account. And there's no promise that this client is going to pay me. But I literally like jump off the cliff without the parachute, going to 3 different countries. I am crazy. Talking about this just lets me know how crazy I am. So I got on the plane, and right before I was like, okay, cool. This was back in 2016. So like Lyft and Uber weren't definitely popular in the Ukraine then. So I caught a cab, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pay respect to the traditions there because I know I'm wowing. So I put like the head wrap on, and I wore really baggy clothes. It wasn't anything like really, exposing myself. In a different country, this girl by herself with $172 in my pocket, right? I catch a cab to the, and I was like, bump it. I'm going to sleep in the airport, but at least I'll have a gig. It could buy me some time. I go to the school. I speak to the kids, translator, so cool. Come back to the airport, make my little area in the airport. And because in the morning time, I was getting on a plane to go to London. So I was like, oh, cool. Like maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. So I spoke. Came back to the airport. By the time I got back to the airport, I connected to the Wi-Fi. They had processed the payment in my account. So I was feeling a little bit bougie. Hello. So I went and got me like a glass of wine. I'm like, oh, I'm really out here on the face of God. So then I went to London. My brothers ended up like paying for everything. I didn't have to pay for anything while I was in London the first time. Like they really took care of me. Then I went to Paris. I ended up booking another gig in Paris. I wanted a middle school there. Spoke at a middle school in Paris. Got on a plane. Came back home. But I did that with $172 in my pocket. And I think it's important to say that because I'm not the type of person and I get we all have our journeys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's journey is different. Use your resources. Before I get into this story, it's important for me to say, use the resources that God gives you. Like if he gives you parents to fall back on, you are so blessed, honor them. But I'm the type of person who, since I've been on my own since I was like 17 years old. And so when I say entrepreneurship for me, it's like having no one to fall back on. And I just want people to know that regardless of what type of walk of life you come from, you can do it. You are worthy. Like so many people that come from the inner cities, they don't think that they're worthy of exploring the world or entrepreneurship. Like, yeah, you're going to struggle. Yeah, it's difficult. But at the end of the day, it's worth it. And God is always going to take care of you. So, that's one of my little crazy Madison testimonies, because people know I am so quick to jump on an airplane with no funds and just dip on civilization of America, because America get on my nerves sometimes, I'm being honest.
And I hear and respect that, because I'm not jumping on planes. I got kids, I gotta have sitters and stuff, but the opportunities, I will jump on random opportunities. I've applied for contracts and jobs that I had no experience in until I started doing it, because I know, I'm a learner, I'm a doer, I'm going to get this done by any means necessary, and just let myself, take that chance and say, okay, it's going to be a journey. I have a lot of work to do, but I'm up for it and I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get this done. So sometimes it's all about saying yes. And literally, I in the beginning of my book, like the first page of my book, it says, like, the dedication. It's like, I'm the type to say yes and then Google how to do it after. And I think having that mentality and that attitude, that's what you did, going out on a leap of faith, because it's like, should I stay home and not take advantage of the opportunity and the regret not taking advantage of this opportunity, or end up sad, or should I, take a chance, even if the opportunity doesn't go through, then I might get mad, but then, at least I have a 50% chance of being successful, 50% chance of getting that yes, 50% chance of taking advantage of that opportunity.
And then you have a crazy ass amazing story to share after it. Like, regardless, I like to look like there's no yes, there's no. There's only either I'm winning or it just means not now, and I'm just taking experience for when it is time. So there's like my one of my brothers, Anthony, he was just on my podcast. He actually made a great quote. And my podcast episode is coming out soon. It's called I Am My Brother's Keeper. But he made a great quote, and he was like, none of us know what we're doing. We're figuring it out and figuring us out along the way. We're just walking in what feels right. And when you walk in what feels right, especially with integrity, then you really discover your soul underneath the veil of reality. Yeah. I can't wait for that podcast. Yeah.
Is this Anthony Frazier?
Yes, Purple Unicorn.
Yes, Anthony Frazier actually did the what's it called? The foreword for my book. So everything full circle. Look at that. We're here talking about.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Full circle. Like, look at that.
Yeah. Yo, just to put it out there, because I already put it out there in my podcast episode, but I'm letting the world know, like, Anthony's my brother. We've known each other since about like 2013. I beat Anthony in ping pong. Everybody needs to know that. Yeah.
You heard it here. She beat Anthony in ping pong, and don't let anybody tell you different, especially Anthony.
Hello. But yeah, man, you gotta take a crazy leap of faith, and you really just have to trust the signs of the universe and understand that everything is in divine synchronized order. There's no such thing as a coincidence. There's no such thing as like a mistake. You're the winner, you learn. Like, if you're walking, you have to connect the dots. You can only connect those looking back, not forward. And the thing about us in this lifetime, we all have a divine purpose. We all have spiritual abilities. It's just about how in tune are you with your calling, that you're unlocking that part of you that is here to serve humanity for the better good. And it's not what I've learned, especially about a lot of speakers or a lot of people in media, or any field. There's a lot of people that's doing things based off of ego, based off of, I want you to subconsciously feel like I am a hierarchy than you. And so listen to me, when they're really not talking about anything of substance, they're just saying, look at me, here's my ego, stroke it for me. When in reality, I do believe that we all have a part to play in this mission. Like, we all have something more than someone else, as in if you look at a puzzle, all the corners of the puzzle are their own unique shape, right? That's their lane. But when you put those puzzle pieces together, it makes a bigger picture. You can't make the bigger picture if one of the puzzle pieces decides to walk off in ego because they have a different shape than the other puzzle, because they're the corner of the puzzle and they think they're better than the center of the puzzle piece. So we all know something different.
Exactly.
We all need each other. But what's happening in this culture, in this society, is people are walking and marinating in ego, and they're forgetting that. Like, one thing that I always do is I make sure I credit God. And when I say God, I'm Christian, so that's who I resonate with. But when I say that, I'm talking about the higher source, whoever you see, the universe, Allah, whoever it is, that's who I'm talking to. This is just my language of religion, because I look at religion like I look at language. Because I'm saying hello and you're saying hola, we're saying different things, but
it mean the same thing.
They mean the same thing. So this is just, I'd call it and actually my last thesis goes into that a little bit. But it's all about love languages. But anyways, yeah, so it's about walking in our divine purpose and just connecting the dots. And you can only do that when you look back, not forward. That's actually called Tinkofu. It's a West African proverb. You connect the dots, you have to know where you're going in order to know where you come from. But we all play a bigger part. That's why we like certain things. That's why we love certain things. That's why we do certain things. Like a chef, they naturally just love making recipes. Where me, I've always been naturally nurturing, and I've always been very talkative. So once you start to connect those dots, you start to attract the people who are in your soul tribe, which you made the agreement for before you came into this lifetime to serve the better good of humanity. Because we're all here and we all want to leave a mark in some way.
Definitely. And then, I want to jump back to something that you just mentioned about, coincidence. I recently published like a little Instagram IGTV video that talks about coincidence versus cause and effect, because we also live in a society that's right now, everybody's like focusing on coincidences and trying to replicate coincidences instead of focusing on cause and effect. Not because you got lucky that one time, even if something happened 3-4 times and it had nothing to do with you. The example I gave, you're walking to the doctor's office and you find $1 on the floor. The second and third time you go to the doctor's office, you also find $1 on the floor. The fourth time you go, you find no dollar. So now you're wondering, did I do something wrong? Am I the problem? I need to retrace my steps. But in reality, you were now thinking of this situation because it happened multiple times as a cause and effect. I go to the doctor, which causes me to find $1. When in reality it's just a coincidence. Maybe somebody was dropping $1 on purpose. They're running a social experiment. Maybe the ATM truck, maybe somebody's leaving $1 out for somebody else, but you just so happen to find it first. So you don't even know what's happening. So you can't bank on those coincidences. You have to be able to create your own situation, put yourself out there. And if you continue to go to the doctor, maybe you'll find another $1 one day, but that's not your cause and effect. That was just your coincidence that you fell into. But you can still use the effects of the coincidence, right? You now have, let's say, the same example, you had $3, you could then buy a sandwich or buy whatever, and then you could benefit from those coincidences. But you have to realize is that was a coincidence, not a cause and effect. And though you benefited from finding the money at that time, you have to go do and build on your own cause and effect, so that way you can build systems and be able to know, okay, if I'm doing this, I'm going to receive this. If I'm putting myself out there more, I'm going to gain more opportunities. If I'm talking to more people, I'm going to become more connected. If I'm traveling more, that means I could be an international speaker. So you have to be able to track and measure and focus on these cause and effect in moments, as well as realizing that you are also a piece of cause and effect. And because you are on earth, that means you're going to open up opportunities and connect people and do specific things. The effect of your life, the cause of your life is going to affect many people that are out there, and acknowledging that is going to help you unlock your purpose at an even higher level. So definitely think people need to start thinking about these different aspects a little bit more, because a lot of times we just kind of brush past it as, that thing just happened. And it's like, no, that was supposed to happen. And
everything happens the way it's supposed to happen, when it's supposed to happen, how it's supposed to happen, who it's supposed to happen with. And I love this whole theory on cause and effect that you just gave. And I just learned a little bit that I'm actually going to put into my next thesis. Because even with those dollars dropping on the floor, they were supposed to happen those 3 times. But then, and while I'm saying is, there's a UPS truck that's low, and in the world, it says world, and under it is world service synchronizing. That's crazy. But But while those are dropping on the floor, it's also meant for it not to happen the next time because you are becoming too reliant on it to happen.
Boom.
So you have to find your own independence within it as well. So for instance, someone asked me a question on IG Live the other day, and they're like, how do you heal from a bad friendship that went wrong years ago? And I told them, like, I gave an example of like one of my, because this retrograde which we're in right now is like wild. It's 9 planets at once. And so there's another van coming by that says legacy. That's crazy. So synchronicity. So I gave them a story about me and one of my old best friends, and I felt like she wasn't there for me when my aunt transitions into the next lifetime. And I broke it down to them. I was like, at the end of the day, yes, you are supposed to have people around you that you feel like you can depend on. However, you have to look, you aren't supposed to depend on anyone for anything, because the reality, the cause and effect of this reality is everyone is going to die one day, which is the ultimate form of betrayal. You will no longer be in this flesh. So you have to be dependent on yourself. And if you're dependent on someone else or anything, there's some rooting of childhood trauma that isn't healed yet. So you have to look within and deal with that, because when you don't deal with that childhood trauma, that also causes a cause and effect.
Ooh, we digging deep today, y'all. Y'all wasn't ready for this. Y'all was expecting to hear just about well, guess what? We going deeper. No surface talk. This
yes.
There's no surface talk. We cut.
And and sometimes trauma isn't even from this lifetime. If you want to go a little bit deeper, sometimes people are actually fearful. Like when people are afraid to die, or they're afraid of water, or they're afraid of bungee jumping. A lot of that trauma has to do with past life stuff of ways that you died, and you're afraid of that in this lifetime. So regressions is actually a way where I assist people privately to dig into their past lives, so that they can heal. Again, Sankofu, in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you come from. So to heal that trauma, so they can walk further into their mission in this lifetime to seek more abundance.
Definitely. And what I really like what you just mentioned in regards to, it's no longer meant for you, right? With friends, family, different situations. Sometimes if you keep relying on it, the situation will push you out in a way that you never expected. So you have to be able to notice the signs and remove yourself before you get hurt and before you get pushed out, because what is no longer meant for you will not, it will by all means.
What is meant for you will find you, and what is no longer meant for you will not serve you. Exactly. So you might as well just surrender. You might as well just surrender to the universe. Like literally, there's so many situations in my life, whether it be in business or whatever, and I will literally say, God, I surrender. This belongs to you. And whatever happens from this moment forward is your divine plan for my life and for my calling and my happiness. Because right now where I am, it doesn't make sense. Another thing that I learned too, after you do that surrendering, because when shit don't make sense, if something crazy happens in your business or something like that, you're like, yo, this doesn't make sense. What is going on? When it doesn't make sense, and you know that you're showing up, you're being present, you're walking in your purpose, that is usually right before the biggest blessing happens. So once you do that surrendering, you actually attract, because you're giving it to God, you're giving it to your angels, you're giving it to your ancestors. Now you have spiritual, because everything is energy, let's be real. You have spiritual forces on the other side that's actually working with you to help it manifest quicker. So not even 10 times out of 10, you will receive the biggest blessing, and it will connect everything and make it make sense. Because it's like, yo, none of this makes sense. This does not make 3D logical sense. So so then when you surrender, you're giving it to God, which is giving it to the 5D. And then is when the blessing comes, once you do the surrendering at a rapid speed. Trust me, I've been in some crazy ass situations.
And then again, and I just want to keep reiterating it. If you don't make that choice while you have it, you don't know what's going to happen when that choice is taken from you. And a lot of times what puts people in certain places of depression and anxiety and confusion, because I've been there where I saw the signs. I was like, nah, then boom, and it's like, oh snap, and then you start fearing, like, was that me? Was I not paying attention? And then you said the quote, but the same thing. Hindsight is always 20/20. When you're looking back, you're like, oh snap, I was ignoring that. I felt it deep in my core, but I said, oh no, I'm just going to ignore that. But now you realize like, oh, snap, I should have done that right there. And you can make better decisions in the future. And so be mindful
But
of
you know,
that.
one thing that I've learned, when you're tapped into your divine purpose, there's like no such thing really as even a mistake. Because at the end of the day, like for instance, when it comes to like, let's talk about, this is a business podcast, so let's keep it real, business structured and failures in business for a little bit. So I look back when I was working at these radio stations, right? And for the longest, I always get paid, you know, under the table. But, you know, when I would work and I would do so much for these companies, and I would always be like, yo, why won't they hire me? They would like professionally hire me. And I was just so devastated. And it got to a point, I was there for 4 years. And so it got to a point, and I can talk about this because Jameer and I, on my next podcast episode, we're really open and honest about our relationships with the radio stations. And so, and everybody there is still family. But looking back on it now, even when I decided to leave, it's kind of like, oh, wait, that was supposed to happen just like that. So the key to it is not trying to be perfect and thinking that you're not going to make mistakes or you're not going to fail, because guess what? You are. And anyone who thinks that business is going to go right all the time, they're either a rookie or they're just naive, and they're a rookie. And so it's not about things not going right. It's about learning from that experience and not making it repetitive. It's about enhancing yourself. And even if you're the one who messes up in business, you take ownership for that, apologize, and you fix it by change behavior, learn from it. And a lot of people, again, it goes back to that ego statement of the puzzle piece. People don't like to admit when they're wrong, but when you have the courage and the ability on the inside to open up and admit, like, look, I messed up, I dropped the ball, but here's what I did to fix it, that's when you elevate as a business professional.
And then your employees, your team members, your colleagues, your partners will respect you more for that, because if you can let go of your ego and say, okay, that was wrong, or I messed up, and let's do it better, that shows that you're willing to learn, you're willing to change, and you're willing to grow. And it's people that are stuck in these, I don't want to admit that I was wrong because I'm in charge, I'm the boss. That's not going to teach anything. That's going to make your employees say, okay, if I mess up, I'm not going to say that I did it. I'm just going to blame somebody else. I'm just going to, if they ask me,
there's a difference between a boss and a leader. Like for my website, I have about 64 bloggers, by the grace of God, globally, that write for me. And we run basically a grandfather operation where I have my 7 editors-in-chief throughout the divisions of my website who run their divisions. Then, you know, they have writers under them, who have writers under them, who have writers under them. And so basically, if I drop the ball in something, I'm like, look, I dropped the ball here, but here's what I did to correct it. And now here's what we're doing moving forward. And I don't look at, again, it's not about being the center puzzle piece and thinking that you're better than that corner puzzle piece, because that corner puzzle piece is a part of the picture as well. And they're as important as you, but in their own lane. We all need each other. So I may be good at this one thing, but I'm not all that to the point where I don't honor someone else whose energy has been brought into my life, because you learn from everyone you're around. And while I'm good at this, they're good at something else and better at something else than I am. So I can learn a tool that will attribute to my growth spiritually, mentally, financially, and emotionally if I tune in enough to honor who's around me and not think that I have this hierarchy because of 3D accolades. And that's another thing. And we talk about that on the podcast too. 3D accolades don't impress me. Never have, never will. You know, and there's a difference between everyone can tell you, and you know, our little tribe, I am everyone's biggest cheerleader. I am proud of people when they are walking in their purpose and accomplishing things that they set out to do. But there is a difference between being proud of you and being impressed by you. I'm not impressed by earthly accolades. You know, by the grace of God, I've been blessed to work with some of the biggest those accolades in the world. And so what attracts me is the spirit of the person. Once you align your spirit, you attract the right people for you in business. So I just want to make sure I emphasize on how important that is for business too. And that is why, you know, these people gravitate towards me, because 1, they know I don't care. 2, I know how to put the phone down. My phone, I rarely post anything that I do online. And people be like, Madison, you got to, and I'm learning how to like kind of navigate it from a digital marketing standpoint and really put more stuff out there. But again, I'm also very protective of my work and the people I love. So it's like, okay, I'll do it, trying to learn how to do it a little bit more. But put the phone down, stop being impressed, start being proud of people. And Tupac and Cuba, I don't know.
Definitely. I love that. I love that wrap up, because And I really like that mentality of being proud of people instead of being impressed. And I think when you do that, when you're proud, it makes it not feel like such a competition, right? Everyone sees on social media, oh, that person has a Lambo, I need a Lambo. That person has 5,000 followers, I need 5,000. I need 10,000 followers. I got to do better. But celebrate their wins, because that's for them.
To be honest, most of that shit is fake. Like, let's see, there's people that buy their followers and their engagement. I'm really not impressed by that type of stuff. Like, what are you putting out that's of currency? What is bigger than that, bigger than who you're sitting at the table? Like, I don't want to sit at the table with anybody who has a rotten soul. The thing about me, I don't know why God has put this blinder on me, but it's a gift and a curse, because I'm very grateful of it. I don't see earthly accolades. I just go. I really, when I see a spirit, that's what I fall in love with. I always fall in love in the 5D first, with a person's soul. And so after that, I'll start to get to know what they do in the 3D. I'm not impressed by who you're sitting with. And then you just like proud, not impressed. Strip away. I'm on the other side of media. Maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but there's so many people that buy their features, and buy their slots instead of really grinding and working hard for it. There's been so many times where the shit has been presented to me, but there's something in me that's like, no, I'm going to get this when it's time for it, and it's going to, blessings hit different when you earn them.
Yes, blessings
they hit way different
when you earn them. That
like, let's say
t-shirt.
Oh wait, that's actually a really good business idea. Good one. But see, this is what I'm talking about, how you bounce off of each other when the energy is right. Look, you just gave me we've learned so much from each other in just the conversation by knowing that we both have a piece of that puzzle. We're not impressed. We know that we're humans. We know a lot of the same people. So it's just kind of like, okay, I know you're a good person. I could feel your energy. You could feel energy in pictures. You kind of know when somebody is just in something because of who they know versus what they know and what their spirit does. So you just bounce energy off of people and you'll attract the right people. Don't be a rotten soul. Because I see that a lot in media. There's a lot of media personalities who there's a lot. It's never really the A-listers that I interview, but I would say more so like the C-listers, right? The C-listers have the bougiest attitudes, and you don't want to throw earthly accolades at them, but you be sitting there like, are you serious? Is this who you are? There's some people I wish I would have never met, but even with that, I'm grateful for them because I learned who I don't want to be as my career progresses, and that's also important.
Boom. What you that's it right there. Learning what you don't want is just as important as understanding and learning what you do want, because there's a lot of things out there that are negative, will make you minimal, will make you stupid, will make you damage your body, damage your mind, damage your spirit, and you got to know what you don't want just as much as you know what you do want.
Yeah, that's also a t-shirt. No, but seriously, and speaking of, just to wrap it up, if we're going to wrap it up, I want to wrap it up with diet, because you just said something very important about food. Eating right. Everyone's not meant to be vegan, but everyone is meant to be healthy. There are things that will align you to attract the right people. If you're putting garbage, you have to look at your body as a vehicle, and you're like, and people listen to stuff are like, okay, Madison, what does this have to do with business, right? But spirituality is literally everything. Mm-hmm. So if you are putting a car, right? You get to a job, to and from a job in a car, right? Let's go with that. If you put bad gas into a car, eventually what's going to happen?
It's going to crash and break down and be damaged and make a lot more accidents and need a lot more taken care of than it's supposed to.
Exactly. If you put good gas into a car, what's going to happen?
Go vroom vroom until it has 400,000 miles, and then you still driving it.
So that's my point exactly. Now, with our bodies, we feel like we're in something looking out, right? Mm-hmm. That's because our bodies are the temples of our spirit. This is the vehicle of our spirit. The food that you are consuming, your diet, and this goes to visual media too, and the people and the energy that you're around, but I'm going to stick to food because I'm going to be on here this phone call for another hour if I keep going. So just sticking to food, Madison. The food that you put into your body is the gas that you're putting into the engine of your car. There are foods that will heal your chakras, which is the divine trinity of alignment, your mind, body, and spirit. And then there are foods that will hinder you. So I look at it like this. You are either you're killing yourself or you're healing yourself when you put food into your mouth. This is the gas tank. If you keep putting bad gas into that car, every once in a while you put some bad gas into it, like, all right, bruh, but you don't do that every day. You want to keep that good gas in the body. You want to drink your water. You want to make sure you're hydrated, because that plays a huge role into who you're attracting, whether it be in your personal life or in your business life.
Definitely. And we're going to, if I had, the Power 105.1 buttons, drop some major DJ Clue bombs. Boom, boom, because that was definitely.
Well, we got to drop flex bombs because that's my mentor. So let's drop the bombs for flex.
All right, so definitely thank you so much. We've dropped many gems on this episode. We've talked about spirituality, we talked about business, we talked about working with the right people. Is there any last notes you want to drop? Maybe a sentence that could resonate with the audience, that could bring them through the rest of 2016. I mean, whoa, I went back in time. Rest of 2019.
Look, that's retrograde. I'll keep it with one sentence, and it's, you are worthy. Regardless of whatever, you are worthy.
Thank you.
There we go.
You heard it here from Madison Jaye. Again, guys, this is Doing the Most, the misadventures of entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Madison. And guys, we will catch you next week for another episode. If you love this episode, definitely leave us a review. Let us know what you think with some comments. Reach out to us on social media. You can find me at GSD with Georgie, and you can find Madison, I think it's at Madison Jaye. Is that correct?
Yes, JAYE_.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here with us, and let us know what you think of this episode, and let's continue these conversations. This is Doing the Most, the misadventures of entrepreneurship. We'll see you next time.
Check it out.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Doing the Most. Catch us here next week, same time, same place. If you can't wait, head on over to Doingthemost.xyz to stay connected. Until next time, keep on doing.